how does our worldly perception happens? What is the source of Maya or this illusion? There is one consciousness, the Supreme Being, the Atman, which manifests as billions and billions and trillions of I thoughts, which identifies itself with innumerable bodies. And it's able to project itself through the senses by having the Dehatma Buddhi, and then is able to perceive the objects of the world. So it's like basically the one consciousness which manifests as the I thought, which is Dehatma Buddhi, and then it basically identifies itself with the physical body, and then it's basically able to project itself to the senses, and then the perceives multiple objects around. This is how we kind of fall down from our natural state of self-awareness to being in the state of Dehatma Buddhi, I am the body idea, and then through our senses we start perceiving the objects of the world, and then we take all these things to be real, forgetting our true natural state of self-awareness. So from this state of having fallen down, we need to recover ourselves and then go back to our original state. This is what we do in the practice of Mahayoga straightly. All other spiritual practices also aim toward the state of going back to the source, but only thing is that they don't straight away deal with the error. Whereas in the practice of Mahayoga, we directly understand what exactly has happened, and then we roll back, and then we start remaining in our natural state of self-awareness. So this state of arising of the ego, which happens when we identify ourselves with our body and develop the Dehatma Buddhi, is the original cause of all Maya or illusion. Because once we identify with the physical body, then naturally we'll have thoughts, mental moments will happen, and then we'll start perceiving the objects of the world, and then all these likes and dislikes, aversions, attachment, fears, passion, everything will arise. So we need to understand the original sin is basically this arising of the ego. So how to go beyond this original sin? We need to be in the state of no ego, egoless state. How to achieve that? By being in the presence of Bhagavan, self-awareness, existence consciousness, by remaining as our own existence consciousness, by keeping our attention on the I am, the feeling of I am, just by being still, being quiet, not doing anything. When we just remain quiet, summa irithal, then naturally we will become aware of the existence. This awareness of the existence is what is called as the Chit, consciousness. So only because of this rising of the ego, we fall to this unreality of this world, by forgetting our true nature. Then what happens? When the ego arises, which is the source of Maya, the mind, it kind of develops lakhs and thousands of thoughts, because of which it hides our true nature for a long time, over so many lifetimes. Then as long as our true nature is hidden by this thick coating of thoughts, we will never be able to understand and experience our true nature. And this is the reason we keep on going around the worldly objects without really understanding our true nature while searching for happiness in the worldly objects is happening. So when one starts in the practice of Mahayoga, thereby one is able to slowly remove the unwanted thoughts which are arising. Then to that extent, naturally, one will be able to have some level of right perception of our own self-awareness, aham. And as one progresses further on the practice of Mahayoga, then naturally one will be able to keep one's attention on the inner beingness, the essence of Atman, the presence of Bhagavan. So we should constantly remind ourselves that anything beyond our self-awareness, Atman, the presence of Bhagavan, Aham, the sense of I am, is ego, is something with form. Anything with form is ego. The truth is beyond all forms. It is the formless Nirguna Brahman. Chittam Sirdasaya Samsaram. Chittanale Nishalamai Nirka Mukti. Chitte Chalati Samsaro Nishale Moksha Evatu. And the mind remains still without any mental movement, any thoughts. We are in the state of moksha, liberation, mukti. The mind moves even a little, it is bondage, samsara. So, the interval between two thoughts is actually the state of Atman. Because in that interval, what remains is only Atman. Why? Because when we have thoughts, then we go after thoughts by joining them, and then we get lost with the worldly objects. But when we don't react to thoughts, when we watch the source of thoughts whenever they arise, then naturally our attention shifts towards the inner self-awareness, and then the thoughts actually go away by itself on its own accord. As we keep on doing this practice, our attention will naturally be on the inner self-awareness as much time as possible. So when we keep our attention on the self-awareness, then naturally the mind itself resolves into the awareness. When the mind is emptied of its contents, the thoughts, then the mind itself merges in the Atma. Again, when we rise up with thoughts, the mind again regains its form with the thoughts, and then we get lost in the worldly objects. This kind of transition from a state of mind with thoughts with the worldly objects and the mind subsiding into the Atman, being awareness alone, is constantly happening within everyone's life, in the mind, every moment of time actually. So what we need to do is avoid this going back to the state of thoughts, the objects of the world, and to remain firm in the state of self-awareness, being in the Atman, so that the mind again never rises up further with the worldly thoughts and worldly objects. As we keep on being in the practice, even when we have to deal with the objects of the world, any activities, any worldly duty one may have to do, it will not really hinder our attention or the abidance in the self-awareness. One can abide in the self-awareness, yet at the same time one will be able to function in this world, engage in any activities of the world which may need our mental focus, physical actions, etc. But yet we will retain our inner focus on the self-awareness. One will be able to experience this as well as one goes further with the practice of Mahayoga. So actions and thoughts are not really hindrance to our abidance in the pure consciousness. Of course, initially one needs to learn to abide in the consciousness. Whenever any thoughts arise, one has to be extremely vigilant, watchful, so that one doesn't go after thoughts, but to keep one's focus on the inner self-consciousness, so that the thoughts will go away. As one keeps on practicing this being in the self-awareness, then naturally, even when there are thoughts and interactions with the worldly objects, one will be able to remain in the state of self-awareness. So for this, we don't really have to do anything. It is not something to do, but it is just a state of being in our own natural self-awareness. This feeling of I am is there with us all the time, forever, here and now, always. Arunachala Hrit Spurtis Swarupanugrahatmane Namo Bhagavate Drashtre Ramanaya Nirantaram. அருணாச்சலம் வழங்கப்பெறும் பேருடைய தமது இயலும் அருளுமானவரும் சர்வ சாட்சியுமான ஸ்ரீ ரமண பகவானுக்கு உள்ளத்தை இடைவிடா வணக்கம். அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ.